And let's welcome Dr. John DeMartini to the show. Hello, John.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me on your show. Appreciate it.
It's an absolute pleasure. I've been so looking forward to meeting you and also speaking with you. And as an expert in human behavior, with the past 2 years that we've all had with COVID and working from home and changes, I'm really interested to find out about your take on how humans have behaved during the COVID pandemic. But before we start, I always like to kick off with a question to you and to find out, because as a human behavior expert, I want to know how you got to where you are today. What were your early career aspirations when you were a little boy?
When I was 3 years old, I wanted to be a baseball player. And I began playing baseball then. I played baseball until I was 13, so for about 10 years. Then my parents moved from Houston, Texas to Richmond, Texas, and baseball in a small economic area was a bit of disorganization and it wasn't as fulfilling. And I shifted to my second most admired thing, which was surfing. I started surfing when I was 9 and overlapped that with baseball. And then I went on to surf and went out to California, Mexico, and Hawaii and lived on the North Shore and became a surf enthusiast and got to ride big waves with some of the top surfers and got into some surf movies and surf books and magazines. And then I nearly died at 17. And one night, I had the opportunity to listen to one man speak who inspired me to believe that I could overcome my learning problems. I had learning challenges. And that night I decided that I had a dream to overcome them, and I wanted to become someday able to read and write properly and speak properly and become a teacher. And I wanted to travel the world and do that. That one has stayed with me now almost 50 years. So this will be this is the 50th year. And, that's the thing that I love the most today. And I do surf occasionally and I throw a ball occasionally, but teaching is my absolute highest priority, most inspiring, most loving thing I get to do. I get to do it every day. And researching and writing and teaching I don't do anything else. I've delegated every single thing off my plate. There's nothing else I do other than teach, research, and write today. So that's what I love doing, and that's what I spend my day doing.
That's a really interesting story, because I did read about your experience when you were young and you nearly died, and meeting this mentor was a pivotal point in your life where you really decided to take control of all perceived limitations, perceived and real limitations as well, and really turn your life around. And how important do you feel it is for us to have a mentor as a young person and also throughout our careers?
Well, you can either reinvent the wheel, or you can learn from somebody who has already experienced it. And foresight is wiser than hindsight. Hindsight and living by trial and error is no way as effective as having foresight and planning and mentorship. All greats have had mentorship and some sort of coaching or mentorship along the way. So I'm a firm believer that I had a very inspiring thing. The mentors in my life have all had an impact, and there's been many of them. But I had the opportunity to meet Howard Hughes when I was 14. And Howard Hughes told me two things: never judge a book by its cover, and because it will fool you. And number two, gain the wisdom of love and the love of wisdom. Learn how to read, because I had learning problems. And today my cufflinks say love and wisdom on them. So here's a man that had a short little interaction, but had a massive influence on my life. Paul Bragg had a massive influence on my life, probably the most. And then there's been thousands of people I've stood on the shoulders of in my reading, great minds, great leaders, and also real physical individuals that I've met in various fields. I've met probably 4,000 global people. And so I've had the opportunity to break bread and consult and meet with and interact and also share and help them. And so there's just such a value to be able to surround yourself with people that have a high standard and high integrity and have massive contribution on the planet. So yeah, I think that mentorship is a very powerful tool. I hope to, in a sense, be partly a mentor to people as well as being mentored.
Oh, I think certainly for you as a mentor, because we can read your books and we can go to your programs, and you've got this breakthrough experience, which is, you know, life-changing as well, that you obviously have created a career where you're a mentor to everybody around the world. And interesting about mentors, don't you think, is that they don't have to be consistently there. It could be someone who gave you a little tip, such as Howard Hughes telling you something: don't judge a book by its cover, or we shouldn't do. And so many people do judge a book by their cover, and people are so worried about, oh, what's my brand and what am I putting out there and is it just right? But if we spend the time to get to know people and really understand what makes them tick, that's what really makes a difference in their life. And to someone to spend the time to give you some advice makes a huge difference. You know, in all of your travels, because you're constantly traveling and speaking and writing and researching, what would you say has been, in addition to your life-changing experience in the early days, what has been the most impactful for you as you travel around the world?
Well, every human being lives by a set of priorities, a set of values, things that are most to least important in their life. And that set of values, that hierarchy of values, that value structure that they hold is unique and fingerprint specific to them. And although it evolves, it's still unique. And whatever's highest on that value list is what an individual will spontaneously be inspired to do. This is where they're going to excel. This will be their calling. And whatever's lower on those values, it will require extrinsic motivation to get them to do. And they'll procrastinate, hesitate, and frustrate in that area. And identifying that value structure, looking at what you're really dedicated to and about, and not confusing it with injected values of the herd mentality around you, and giving yourself permission to be authentic to what's really highest on your value, because whatever's highest on your value is what your ontological identity revolves around. And giving yourself permission to prioritize your life, not only your motor actions every day, but your sensory perceptions. So no matter what happens, how does it help me fulfill what is most meaningful? And what is the highest priority action I can be doing today? It allows me to build incremental momentum to achieve something that I feel is my calling. And when you do that, that is a very powerful transformational state. Self-actualization pathway and self-fulfillment pathway is automatically unfolded. So I believe that identifying what's really most important in your life and finding that one thing, as Gary Keller says, that you want to master and build incremental momentum slowly but surely towards that objective, and build a brand around that instead of living vicariously through other people's brands and spending ridiculous amounts of money trying to be somebody that you don't need to be, and giving yourself permission to build a brand and exemplify and demonstrate authentic, integral expression of what is most meaningful to you. Those are guaranteed to leave a legacy, guaranteed to make a difference, because it's the area that you have a yearning to master to such a degree that you want to solve problems. In the highest value, we embrace pain and pleasure in the pursuit. We pursue challenges that inspire us. Those challenges are things that can contribute to other people's lives, solving problems. The individual's authentic loves to solve problems and make a contribution to others because it's a reflection of themselves. And I think that that's it, prioritizing your life. I try to tell people, find out what's really, truly most important in your life and give yourself permission to live that way and not live by the got tos and have tos and must and shoulds and ought tos and supposed tos and need tos of the herd. And give yourself permission to make a difference. You can't make a difference fitting in, you'll make a difference standing out. And allow yourself to go on the hero's journey of the individual, not the collective. And that allows you to leave a mark in the world and not just be diluted and dissipated through the many and lost in the crowd. And I think each of us have that yearning to want to make a difference that way. So prioritizing your life and identifying what's really valuable to you and sticking to the core pursuit of that and realizing where your core competences are, and then be of service to people doing what you really love. I'm a firm believer that I mean, that's what I try to live that way every day. I teach, research, and write. The rest is delegated. And I want to make sure I'm researching and writing so I have the greatest knowledge I can that's the most integral to be able to make a difference in people's lives. And that is extremely fulfilling in life.
Yeah, and the more you learn, the more you can share, and the more it helps others as well. And I can feel that passion.
Oh, that's so rewarding. It's so rewarding. I get thank you letters every single day from around the world. And it's like tears. You get tears in your eyes daily. Getting to do what you love. I keep a gratitude journal every day of what I get to do. You're in there already right now. I just typed it just in the last hour. And getting to do what you really love and getting appreciation for being able to be you. You know, everybody wants to be loved and appreciated for who they are. If you're not being who you are, you're not going to get it. And if we look down on people and exaggerate ourselves and get into pride, we're going to attract humbling circumstances to get us back into authenticity. And if we look up to people and minimize ourselves and exaggerate them with infatuations, we're not being who we are, and we're going to eventually get frustrated enough and say, I deserve better than that, until we get back into authenticity. Every physiological symptom, every psychological intuition, every sociological feedback, and every comedy and tragedy in our life is a feedback mechanism to get us back into authenticity and integrity with what's really valuable to us. And so the universe is helping us. I really believe that everything is on the way, not in the way. And having the awareness of that and being grateful for the magnificence of what goes on around us to help us live that way is what I think life is about. And I believe that we have the ability to live an extraordinary life. I think the real truthful, magnificent individual is far greater than any fantasies we'll impose on ourselves.
Oh, I so agree with that, because I think we're all born with that innate ability to be able to connect with other human beings and to make a difference in their lives. And there's nothing more rewarding than knowing that you've done something that has actually touched someone or has improved something somehow for them. You know, it was really interesting. You released a post on LinkedIn today, and it was all about, do you want an easy life? And about avoiding problems, and how if you avoid problems, you actually end up attracting more problems. Whereas if you think about
that you don't want.
Yeah, that's right. And then you also said, and it really resonated so strongly with me, was that if you think about problems that you can solve in the world, then you attract more of what you want, and you can be, as you say, your authentic self, because you're doing what you're capable of individually. And I think every human being wants to have their existence validated, not necessarily by someone else, but by themselves. And I think too many of us don't appreciate that our own appreciation of ourselves and who we are is so important. Would you agree with that?
Totally. If you don't pursue challenges that inspire you, you will attract challenges that don't. If you don't do what you can to fulfill and solve the problems of human beings, you will end up having problems that you don't want. It's if you don't fill your day with high priority actions that inspire you, your day fills up with low priority distractions that don't. If you don't have negentropy and bring order to your life and discipline to your life by living congruently by what you value most, you will have incongruency and entropy and aging. And aging is a feedback mechanism to let you know you're not being authentic. Because the immortal soul, the real you, doesn't age.
I love that.
If we
love that.
You know, I always say that there's nothing missing in the soul. At the level of the essence of the soul, nothing's missing in us. At the level of the existence of the senses, things appear to be missing in us. And the things that appear to be missing in us are all the things we're too proud or too humble to admit we have that we see in others. We're not here to compare ourselves to others. We're here to compare our own daily actions to our own highest values. And how congruent are we with that? Then what happens is the people that we are able to serve grow in numbers. The problems we're able to solve grow in capacity, and we have more fulfillment. Our fulfillment in life is directly proportional to how well we solve problems. And what problems are is missing information. All problems are missing information. It's the unconscious being brought conscious to make you fully conscious. So the more we are awakened and fully integrated, the less we have missingness, the more fulfilled we are, the more we're able to help other people through exemplification. When you're living an inspired life, you inspire others to do the same because you give them permission to follow that path. So that's how I want to live my life. I always say that the greater your life, the greater the problems you solve, the greater the life you have.
Mm.
And most people are trying to run from problems. Their amygdala wants to avoid predator and seek prey, avoid problems and seek ease. But the executive center is looking for problems that are humanitarian and trying to solve them. All the great people that I've met that are really amazing achievers are looking for what are the problems in the world that I can contribute to solving. They're not looking to avoid problems. They're looking at how to solve big problems. And I know some that are solving amazing problems, and they're fortunate. They're very fortunate individuals because of the fulfillment and the economics and all the results that happen. So I don't want to, shrink from the challenges. I want to go and find out how to solve the problems. Mine happened to be in the area of human behavior. I wanted to solve problems that have been there for centuries and millennia, to solve problems that people have been having, and there's solutions to it. And I feel blessed because I am, and that's inspiring. I've been pursuing that for almost 50 years.
And the passion is what keeps you young. I love this saying, the real you doesn't age. And that's so true, isn't it? Because if you feel that enthusiasm about what you do, there's an energy about everything that you do, and it makes you happy. It helps to make other people happy. And sparking that passion within you, it's like, there's more that I can do every single day. It's such a wonderful way to live.
I differentiate, pardon my etymology background, but I differentiate passion from mission. There's a difference. If you go and look at the etymology of passion, it will take you to the root called pati, P-A-T-I, and the Latin root, and also passio, P-A-S-S-E-O. And those, by definition, mean to suffer. The passions originally, until 1985, when the passion for excellence changed the lexicon. Prior to that, passion meant to suffer. And so the 7 deadly sins of Christianity were the passions of Christ, right? Lust and greed and sloth and these things. And so I don't usually use the word passion. I use the word inspired mission. When you're living by your highest value, that is your telos, according to Aristotle. And that is your chief aim, according to Napoleon Hill. It is the end in mind. It is the final cause. It is the place where your highest priority is, an a priority calling from the divine nature within you. And the study of that highest value was called teleology, the study of meaning and purpose. So the most inspiring, most meaningful, most purposeful, most fulfilling thing we can do is to live by our highest value, which is our calling or mission or métier. When we are living in lower values, the unfulfillment that occurs brings the blood glucose and oxygen into the amygdala for survival. And we look for immediate gratification, and we try to avoid challenge we don't want. And we have distress, which shows in the cytokines and anti-inflammatory imbalances. And so the immediate gratification, the compulsive behavior, the addictive behaviors are a byproduct of unfulfilled highest value. And they were the definition of the suffering, because you're striving for that which is unobtainable and trying to avoid that which is unavoidable, instead of embracing both sides of life. So an inspired mission, I consider myself a man on a mission who's inspired to teach. I don't call myself passionate because I don't feel I'm suffering by the definition. But today the term is thrown around and they interchange them as passion and mission, but I prefer to keep to the original etymologies because the mission was later in the 1800s, a terminology that the Christians use for those on a mission, a spiritual mission. I'm inspired by my life. I'm on a mission. I'm not addicted to success. I don't avoid failure. I don't live there, because I always say success is a depurposing distraction, and failure is a repurposing, focusing mechanism. They're feedback systems to get to the center. And in the center, you don't attach to those labels. You're just on your mission, and you're grateful, and you're loving what you're doing. You're inspired. You're enthused. You're more certain. You're more present. You're transcendental. So I'm not a passionate individual. I'm an inspired man on a mission. That's the language I use. but some people use those interchangeably. So that's, it's just a language issue, but I like to go to the original etymologies.
Yeah, the inspired mission is a wonderful way to say it. You know, what's very interesting is, the past 2 years with COVID, people have been taking a step back, mainly because they've had to, and they've had to work from home, and they've had a complete upheaval of the way that they've lived their lives throughout the world. And now there's, the buzzword is the Great Resignation, and is people are just realizing what's truly important to them in their lives, and they've reassessed what their values are, and they're thinking, hey, is what I was chasing really that important after all? And there's been such a huge shift in the way people are behaving at work, at home as well. People are craving, a hybrid work environment. As a human behavior specialist, what's your take on how people have behaved and reacted to this pandemic?
Well, I've had the opportunity to see the entire spectrum, the whole scale from amygdala responses to executive responses. I've seen people that want to become victims of their history, and I've seen others that become masters of their destiny because of COVID. I call it the COVID that's devastating COVID, or Saint COVID. Personally, I think it's Saint COVID. I'm grateful, but because it really allowed me to go online and reach people by the millions from my ship as I'm trailing. I'm right in the Polynesian Islands right now, sailing in the Polynesian Islands. So outside my window is the Pacific Ocean. So I'm grateful, but I'm a firm believer. When March came of 2020, I sent out a letter out to my database and asked them to write down all the blessings that are occurring as a result of this certain lockdown. And I got 17,000 replies, and the replies were amazing. Some of them had 10, some had 50, some had 100 benefits. I started reading those out to people, and many people were brought to tears because they go, wow, I instead of letting the world on the outside run me, I now realize that I can perceive it if we have control of our perceptions, decisions, and actions. And I can take whatever happens to me and I can perceive it as a heaven or hell. I can make it for terrible or terrific. It's totally up to you. And it's nothing out there inherently, one way or the other. It's all neutral events until you, with your subjective bias, label it. And I'm a firm believer that you have the capacity to ask a new set of questions, to become cognizant of both sides of things and liberate yourself. If you see an event that you think is terrible and you're conscious of the downsides and unconscious of the upsides, it's going to occupy space and time in your mind. It's going to make it difficult to sleep. It's going to make you have an instinct to avoid. It's going to be, you're going to run the story, or, this has happened to me, and you're going to want to, be the victim of that event. And if I ask, so what's the upside of that? And if I stack up the upsides of that and look for it, once the upsides equal the drawbacks, it's not running me anymore. I'm running me. And the same thing on an event that you think is terrific. Many people have got I remember this one lady, she said, I finally got the dream house I've got. I said, if you say so. And I knew that it's a matter of 6 months to a year, she's going to go, and now I got to deal with the security. I got to keep the thing clean. I now got to pay the bills. I got the taxes on it. I got the landscaping. I got this and this. And now she's going to be bitching about the thing that she was infatuated with. I said, everything has a pair of opposites. And if you're able to see both sides, you're mindful. But if not, you're conscious of one and unconscious of the other, or conscious of the other side and unconscious information, things. And that puts you in your amygdala to avoid and seek. And so you're extrinsically run instead of intrinsically called. But balance the question, your intuition is always helping you ask the question to make you cognizant and conscious of the unconscious, to make you fully conscious. And if you listen to that and ask questions that bring yourself into homeostasis, you liberate yourself from the things that occupy your mind, and you have no noise. The noise is gone, and you're now clear conscious, and you're now present, and you're now certain, because you're not wavering with emotions. You're not in subjective biases of the amygdala. You're now in the objective executive center, and you're now an executive mastering and governing your amygdala, and you're present. And that's where you perform at your peak.
Mm.
That's where the power is.
Mm.
That's the mission, not the passion.
Yeah, I think we all have that capacity, don't we, to be able to take control of our lives through our reactions to what's happening externally. And I love the way that you explain it, because it explains really the shift in the way people are thinking. They've had enough time to be able to take a step back and reconsider their lives as well. This must be what you coach people through in your breakthrough experience program, and I'm sure that you must discuss it so much in the Values Factor, your new book, because I haven't read the Values Factor yet, but I certainly will do so. Can you tell us a little bit about your breakthrough experience?
Well, I've done the breakthrough experience for it'll be 33 years in just a few weeks. I've done it 1,141 times. And I'm a metric freak, as you can see. But I love that program, and because it's a synthesis of my 49 and a half years of research on human behavior, condensed in a way that gives people practical tools to do something extraordinary. And I developed methods on how to identify what the values are and how to prioritize and structure your life and how to start liberating yourself from lower depreciating actions and wake up your executive center. But I also have developed a method on how to take any distraction that you're distracted by and dissolve it. And it's just by a series of cognitive questions, because the quality of our life is based on the quality of the questions we ask. So for instance, let's say you run into somebody and they say something that's critical or something and you're distracted by it. I ask them, what specific trait, action or inaction, did you perceive that individual displaying or demonstrating that you disliked and despised or hated most, that made you want to withdraw? Instead of running a story, I just narrow it down. What is it? Deconstruct what exactly was stated, done. And then I ask them to be accountable, because you can never resent something on the outside that's not representing a part of you that you're hiding and too proud to admit you have on the inside. So I then say, now go to a moment where and when you perceive yourself displaying or demonstrating that same or similar behavior or action or trait. And at first they go, oh, I don't do that. I pride myself on never doing that. Stop the bubble. Stop the persona. That's a pride persona. That's not the authentic you. Go look. And I've been doing this for 36, almost 37 years, that particular question. And I've yet to see in that question that it can't be answered by people. I mean, I've even done Holocaust survivors doing Hitler on this. So when people go in there and actually dig deep and go inside and find out where they do those behaviors in their own form, it calms down some of the judgment, makes them introspective and reflective. And then they go, and I make them go until they find it where it's quantitatively and qualitatively equal. And I've done that on maybe 250,000 people easily, personally, one-on-one. And then I go in there and I ask them the next question. Once it's quantitatively, qualitatively equal, the level of the playing field, you're not too proud or too humble to admit what you see in others inside you. You now are reflective and awareness. The seer, the seeing, and the seen are the same now. I then go and ask a question. Go to a moment where and when you perceive this individual displaying or demonstrating this trait, action or inaction. And at that moment, what was the benefit to you? Well, there's no benefit. No. That's a subjective bias, a confirmation bias on how bad it is. You've got a disconfirmation bias on the positives. You're not seeing the whole. Let's look at the other side. It's neutral until you judged it. Let's look again. You know, how is it catalyzing? Is it driving you? Is it making you want to connect to people? Is it making you introspect? How is it serving you? And we make them accountable to go and find out how it serves them spiritually, intellectually, business, financial, family, social, physical, and what is valuable to them. How's it helping them on their journey? Because it's not a mistake and it's not something random. It's got some meaning to your life. You can extract meaning out of it by discovering it. Once they find the benefits to us, make them stack up the benefits until the benefits are equaling to the drawbacks, the positives are equal to the negative, and it's a mathematical equation where it's neutral. When they do, they get a tear of gratitude. And then they realize that this individual that I wanted to avoid with an instinct in my amygdala is actually some part of me that I haven't loved And this person's brought into my life to help me love that part.
Mm.
And then I get to appreciate them. And then I realize I do that. And then I go and find out how, when I've done that, how did it serve the people I've done that to? And clear out the shame and the guilt. And then I ask, since I have a label that I project on them, I go to a moment where I've perceived this individual displaying the opposite trait of what I've labeled them. And then I go, oh my God, there's times when they're generous and kind and praising, and there's times when they're critical. And then I look and realize that everybody has a set of values. When you support their values, they can be nice and open. You challenge their values, they can be mean as a tiger. We're nice as a pussycat, we're mean as a tiger at times. We have both sides, and so do they. And so the label we put on them, narcissist or whatever, are not real. They're just a temporary inability to know how to communicate effectively in their values. Just a human being like we are, doing what we are doing occasionally. Mm. And when we go through and ask questions, those are 5 questions of 80 questions. And it's impossible to go through those 80 questions without being brought to grace and see the hidden order in the so-called chaos, and then realize that everything is on the way, helping you master your life and helping you be authentic. And it'll be, when you have that reflective awareness in the breakthrough experience, that's just a tiny piece of what that program's about. And that's a gold mine of what you can do with that, because there's nothing else out there. I always say there's nothing but love, all else is illusion. And everything is actually helping you get to the state of unconditional love, the soul, the authentic you. And that's where you have a broad view and you've transcended the labels and you allow yourself to love and appreciate, and you give yourself permission to do something extraordinary. So breakthrough is very inspiring to me to be able to do every week. And I've been blessed to take it to a lot of people.
Just thinking of this phrase, do something extraordinary, generates a lot of excitement and energy in me just hearing it, because we can all do something extraordinary. You know, I want to share something with you. It just reminded me, I have this paperweight that a client of mine gave me almost 20 years ago. And I love it so much because I always keep it and I look at it, because it says real leaders are ordinary people with extraordinary determination. And I think that we all have that determination in us, if only we tap into it, and then we can truly lead ourselves, self-leadership as well as the leadership of others. And you have this ability to sort of light a flame of excitement, thinking that we can all be better. And be the best version of ourselves. And now I know you're a busy man, and I've had you for quite a while now, and I could talk to you all day, Dr. DeMartini. It's so interesting about human behavior and all of the work that you do, your breakthrough experience and your new book, The Values Factor, as well. I want to say thank you so much for coming on your career podcast. I really appreciate it. And do you have any final thoughts you'd like to leave with our listeners?
Just know that the magnificence of who you are is far greater than any fantasies you'll ever impose on yourself. And you want to give yourself permission to do something extraordinary, because the real you is extraordinary. And you want to give yourself permission to do what's really, truly most inspiring, meaningful, really the truest priorities in life. Stick to the priorities in life and give yourself permission to do it. Don't let the outer world interfere with what your inner calling is calling you to do. And watch what happens. The magic of your own life is unveiled.
The magic of our own lives. That's so beautiful. And what a wonderful way to end this interview. Thank you so much, Dr. John DeMartini. I've really enjoyed having a chat with you today as you sail around the Polynesian islands. What a beautiful way to live life. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much, John.
Yes, when I was 18 years old, I was blessed to ask my mom, what exactly is a genius? And she said, it's people like Albert Einstein and Da Vinci. I said, well, then I'd like to learn about these men. And so I was given some books about these men, Vasari's book on Da Vinci and Einstein's writings and stuff. And I came across this statement that Einstein said. He said, I'm not a man of my family. I'm not a man of my community or city or state or nation. I'm a citizen of the world. And then I read writings in philosophy, and Epictetus, the Greek philosopher, was writing about Socrates that Plato wrote about. And he said, I'm not a man of Corinth. I'm not a man of Athens. I'm a citizen of the world. And in those days, the world was the geocentric world, that was the center of the universe. And so that rang true to me. And I started a little affirmation when I was that age, that the universe is my playground. The world is my home. Every country is a room in the house, and every city is a platform I get to share my heart and soul. And so that's been my statement. So about 20 years ago, I found out about a ship called the World. That was a private condominium ship where explorers live, and it's very fortunate explorers. Most of them are billionaires. And there's about 100 of us that own the ship, and each of us are part owners. And we identify and select the itinerary and travel the world. And we do exploration, and most run their philanthropy from there, or their businesses from there, or whatever they're doing. And so that's where I'm at. We travel nonstop around the world, from the Arctic to the Antarctic to the Mediterranean to the Pacific, the Atlantic. Anywhere water will allow us to go, up rivers, the Nile, the James, Mississippi, wherever we're allowed to go and we can get our ship in. And we explore, and we do what we can to make a contribution as we travel the world. And right now we're having the Discovery Channel is here doing filming. We do expeditions usually twice a year. And we're in the Polynesians right now, going to uninhabited islands and learning everything we can about these islands, from the who has ever been in this region to the plants, the animals, the geographical formation, volcanism, the islands come from volcanoes and how they evolve and then recede and leave these little islands and atolls, and the various types of life that lives there, from manta rays to various fishes to whatever's there. We're learning all about it, so that way we can appreciate Earth and contribute back.
What an amazing way to live, to be traveling constantly and to be able to put down an anchor, stop and look and go to uninhabited islands and really learn about the nature around it. I think we're put on Earth to be discoverers, yes, and explorers, because if we stay insular in our own little shell somewhere that maybe we just feel safe, there's so much more to be discovered. And you've created this incredible way of living, where not only are you learning, but you're able to contribute. And I can't wait to see those episodes on the Discovery Channel, because it'll be very interesting.
What's interesting is we hire Nobel Prize winners to come and lecture, or leaders in the various fields to come and lecture, so we can educate ourselves. And then a lot of the people here are leaders in their field, and so they also present and educate. We have a Plato Society here where people exchange knowledge, and so it's inspiring. But I'm a firm believer that if you prioritize your life and delegate all lower priority things to give people opportunity to do what they love that you want to delegate, you enhance the economy by giving jobs. You give the ability to lead and inspire. You get the freedom to do what you love, giving them the freedom to do what they love, if you surround yourself with people that are inspired to do those things you want to delegate. You end up being able to serve more people and be sustainably fair exchanged in compensation for that, and live a more abundant life. And people believe that, well, that's not possible for me sometimes, but I've helped thousands of people do that. I used to live on the streets as a teenager. I told the story. So it has nothing to do with where you've been, what you've gone through, what you've been through. None of that matters. What matters is, what are you going to do right now with all the experiences you have, and how are you going to do that to master your life? So we're not victims of history. We're here to be masters of destiny. So I've created my life by design and mapped out how I wanted it and worked towards the achievement of that. And there's no human being that can't do that. And I've had people that have come from townships in South Africa that have been impoverished and trained them on how to do that and gone on to do extraordinary things. It has nothing to do with where you begin. And we can always come up with excuses, can always come up with why we can't do it. This is what it's, none of those mean anything. None of them. What matters is what you have inside. It's never it's nothing in the past, in your memory. There's nothing in your imagination that has to stop you from doing something extraordinary.
Yeah, that's
just
right.
To make a decision to do it.
Yeah, and wherever you are now, well, there is that saying, today is the first day of the rest of your life. There's never a better time than now to take action to create the life that you deserve. And having a mentor such as you there to inspire and to just give that little bit of spark of, that's interesting. Let me give that a go. It gives everybody so much hope. And I believe that we all have it within us to create the lives that we wish for and to be able to help all the people that we want to as well.
Many years ago, this is probably 18 years ago, and a lovely lady who was 94 years old walked up to me, and she was visiting the ship. And my wife was there at the time. She's passed away now, but she was there next to me. And this lovely lady came up to me and she says, I'm looking for a young man to take me to the theater tonight. Young man, are you available? My poor. And I said to my wife, I said, the lovely lady asked me if I could take her to the theater. What is your decision? And she said, she looked at the lady and she says, I think it would be a hoot and a blast. Go for it. Theater. And she said, fantastic. We'll meet at 6:55. And I said, fantastic. So I figured I'd go down, and I was getting ready to go to the theater. Lo and behold, there were two other men at the same time. She picked up three men. She was 94. So three men were down there to take her to the theater. She didn't stop with me. She got two other guys. So all three of us kind of looked at each other and went, okay. All three of us took to the theater. Now, she was a hoot. She just finished climbing Mount Kilimanjaro the week before at 94. She made it to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. And at the theater, while we're waiting for the theater, she's telling us a story about her life. She says, I've been married 5 times. All of my husbands died having sex with me. I'm feisty. And I thought, well, I'm not going there. She inherited, she was a very attractive woman. She inherited more wealth every time she became the Black Widow. All the men died and they gave her more money. So she had 300 million from her marriages and had 30 years worth of goals and is planning to do something extraordinary. She was 94 and I am absolutely certain she would break 100 with her vitality. We get back from the theater, we had a blast. And she comes back to the ship and she says, where's the action? I want to dance. Well, I wasn't interested in dancing anymore, but I was ready to go back to see my wife. Of course, she asked me, how was it? And I said, it was absolutely a blast. She was amazing. I told her the whole story. So here's a lady that chose to walk a different path than the norm. And many people are subordinating to mothers, fathers, preachers, or teachers, or small social groups, community, city, state, nation, or world, conventions, traditions, and mores. And as Kohlberg says, that's where most people are trapped, in one of those layers. But some people break through and transcend that and give themselves permission to be authentic and live by what's really meaningful, not the rules. And they're the ones that end up setting the new paradigm and the new rules for the future. I would rather go and study and mentor under those individuals than be part of the herd, because that's the way you get heard.
That is one of the best stories I have ever heard. Thank you so much for sharing that. Because honestly, hearing a story makes you relate to so many aspects, you know, of each part
Well,
of
then
that story
maybe
too.
the
Wonderful.
relationship is you got a plan on 5 husbands and 300 million. Maybe that's how you're.
I'm I'm going to keep that in mind, John. Definitely. I think on that note, I must say thank you so much for your time. You have been an absolute delight. I really loved getting to know you. Thank you so much for coming onto Your Career podcast. It's fantastic, and
Thank you
enjoy
for your great
your
show.
travels around the Polynesian islands.